want to thank all of you for joining us again today, those of you who tuned in to our broadcast and those of you who join us each and every week. We need to hear from you. We need you to join us. Go to rainbowpush.org and take out a membership. If you're already a member, you need to go to rainbowpush.org and join for one of the members of your family, one of the children in your family. Membership matters. We are fueled by your support and fueled by your presence on Saturdays. And I would encourage every parent, this is an opportunity for you to come by Push every week. Bring your children to Push. We have a STEAM program. Commissioner Villa talked about it. We are about it. We have young people here learning science, technology, engineering, arts, and math every Saturday from 9 to 5. And Reverend Jackson calls it STEM to the Rim. We have our sports program. So they do STEM in the morning, and then they go to the gym and have fitness training, and they play basketball. We want to equip our children with the things that they may not get in public school so that they can compete with children who are in more affluent school districts or in private schools. Bring your children to Push. This is a laboratory for pastors and churches. We want you to model this in your congregations each and every week. On Saturday, have a Saturday program. We will train your teachers. We will train your staff. Every church should have a STEAM program. Our children spend too much time doing too little to prepare themselves for the present and the future that they will live in. We want to encourage you. Call us right now, 773-256-2700. If you have questions, comments, I know it's hot, but it's cool in here, so if you brought your children here today, all of you will be cool. We have air. If you don't have air, come by and see us. On today, this afternoon, there's a Taste of Gospel in the park. Chinta Strasberg has organized it. It is her magazine, 312. She does so much for so many. Join her in the park. We have tickets, but you have to come by here to get them. Also, today is African American Contractors Day. We thank Omar Sharif for all that he does to organize and fight for jobs and contracts. We thank Sarah Riggins. God has restored her to health, and we thank God that she's here. We are praying continually for Mrs. Graves, who is John Graves' wife. She's been battling an illness, and we thank God for his healing power. Reverend Jackson, as Santita indicated, is in South Carolina. That's one of the battleground states. We're going to take back the Senate in South Carolina. We're going to register all of the college students on the campuses where they are in South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and the other southern states. We're going to turn the South blue. Not telling you who to vote for. We're just going to change the color on the map. Well, it is important that we redeem the soul of America. I know that you're frustrated, you are concerned about the conditions that you see. You read the newspaper, some of you every day, and you wonder, when is it going to get better? I know you're looking at the news and you click past because you don't want to hear the reality that we live in. Well, this is not an unusual time. It happened in the biblical times. I remember reading the book of Habakkuk, and the prophet Habakkuk was crying out to God, God, why won't you answer my questions? Why won't you tell me something? It's a problem here. And when you look at what's happening in America and in the world today, I feel like Habakkuk. It is time for us to redeem the soul of America. When the prophet looked out across the landscape, I'm talking about Habakkuk then, but it was almost as if he was reading Don's New York Times or reading the Wall Street Journal today, because he saw people who were innocent being found guilty. He saw police officers, they didn't call them police then, but he saw people that were to enforce the law not enforcing it. He saw guilty people being released and innocent people being incarcerated. He saw selfish lawyers cheating and doing things that were evil in the sight of the people and in the sight of the God. The whole nation was suffering. Unemployment was at an all-time high back then. And you know what it is now. People are working 3 and 4 jobs just to make ends meet. And so the White House will say unemployment is down. It's only down because now I'm working 3 to 4 part-time jobs just to make one full-time job, and I still have no health care benefits. And you're trying to take my Medicaid, you're trying to take my Medicare, and I've worked all my life, and now I don't have health care, and I'm old, and I can't do anything, and I'm sick. Well, today we see the rise of white supremacy. They're marching boldly now. They don't even put the sheets on anymore. They are out on the streets. They are telling us we want to make America white again, not great again. Then we see a president who fans the flames of racism, bigotry, xenophobia. We have a person in the White House that would attack congressional women. And so women, I'm just pausing from Habakkuk just to let the women know we have to stand up. This is not okay. We're the majority in this country. We're the majority of the voters, white, black, brown, yellow women. We cannot allow these words to go without a response. We have the power to change the House, the Senate, and the White House. We have the power to vote, and then we have the influence with our children. We are the vessels through which all life comes, and so we have a power of influence. Mothers, you can make sure that every one of your children, however many you have, and all your godchildren that you feed, and anybody that you feed, you have some influence. Anyone that you house and pay tuition for, you tell them that they must register and vote. We cannot allow them to eat off of us, live off of us, and then disrespect us. What he said about those women creates an atmosphere, a climate of violence where life is put in peril. But beyond that, it's the shell game. While we're listening to the rhetoric and reading tweets all night long from a person who can't sleep, we need to understand what else is happening in the country. We see heightened tensions in the Middle East because of the tweet rhetoric, the president and Twitter in chief, I guess it is. We see violence on every urban street in America. And they're marching around the world because of the injustices that people feel, the poverty that they're not going to tolerate. We're looking at this border. Slim talked about it just a little bit. Women, we ought to be concerned that children are now in cages. Children who don't even speak the same language of their oppressors are housed in cages, separated from any family member, not just the mothers. They don't even know these people. They're not relatives. They didn't walk across that border. They didn't bring themselves here. Children have been taken away from people that love and care for them, thought they were brought to safety, and they've been brought to a cage. It's not okay. I think women, mothers, we must go to the border. We must make sure that our children, these are our children, they're not just some Latino children. Today it is the Mexicans and the Puerto Ricans. Tomorrow it's the Haitians, it's the Africans, it's the Cubans, it's the Caribbeans. Anytime they do it to the least of these, any one of these, they've done it to me. And so I want mothers, I want women. We need to be writing our congressional representatives, our U.S. senators. You go to that border and free those children. Allow the materials to get in. We collect the materials and they stopping it at the border. Well, I know what happens if a bunch of women would go to the border. We can take those diapers wherever they need to go. Children without baths, children without the ability to wash themselves and change their diapers. And you have grown people down there standing guards over children. Think of these as one of yours, because they're one of mine. And there are hundreds across the country. They're not just at one part of the border. It's a long border that, remember, the man wanted to build a wall and figured out he couldn't, because he couldn't measure the distance from east to west. It's not like one little narrow piece. You go from New York, that that's that southern end of New York, Florida, all the way to California. That's a lot of land. It's like thousands of miles. That's part of the border. Housing segregation is growing in this country. Poor people are forced to live in substandard housing in ways that we've not witnessed since the Depression of the 1900s. And we're sitting idly by, reading tweets as if that's a solution to our problem, listening to people in the Senate that can't seem to respond. The silence of the United States Senate is deafening. We're letting one man control what happens to many people. We must redeem the soul of America. How is it that this country shuts its borders to people who are coming here for safety, for security, for medical attention, and allow them to die in the water trying to get to help? How is it that we allow people to be sitting in jail and we know they're innocent, sitting in pretrial detention for years because they can't afford bond? Not because they've committed a heinous crime like murder or any of the crimes that some of these people, Trump's friends, are being accused of. And they're not even in, and they just figured out not to let him out of jail. None of those crimes, not molesting children and taking them to your expensive $77 million house. People are sitting in county jails across this nation merely because they can't afford to pay a $100 bond or a $200 bond, merely because they smoked something that is now legal. And they're still sitting there in states across this nation. And so we have to redeem the soul of America. Think about it. We're a country that stole the land in the first place. Everybody's an immigrant except us. The indigenous people were placed on reservations, almost like the internment camps that the Japanese were put in. The only people that were not, we didn't come here as immigrants because we never saw the Statue of Liberty. We were chained to the bottom of the ship in America and then sold in New York on the auction block. So we have to redeem the soul of America. I know you're wondering, how do we do that? You have a situation where 4 cops in Chicago, fortunately, were fired, even though they should be in jail in the Van Dyke case. Yet you have the Smollett matter that's really prosecutorial discretion. You notice discretion when it's rich white people, it's okay, but when it comes to black people, they're trying to get Kim Foxx. I don't want y'all to get confused, so we got to focus in 2020. I don't care what they say or do. It is not about Smollett. It is about trying to attack Kim Foxx, the state's attorney. They are questioning her ability to be a prosecutor. We have a construction summit mainly because we don't see ourselves working. You drive all over Chicago, you drive all over America. You see a lot of work going on, but look, count the heads. Look for your people that look like you. Look for somebody that's in the sun that's getting darker because they already got a tan. You don't see that many because we're not part of the development of these cities and suburbs. We're not even part of rebuilding the infrastructure in our own neighborhoods. I looked on my block. They're building in the 21st Ward, putting sewers in. I kept looking, Omar, for somebody that would be excavating. I know we know how to dig a hole. I kept wondering, would there be a flagger out there to just keep me from... I needed somebody to put the fence up, John. I said, somebody ought to be doing the insurance for this stuff. We are not doing the work. We're not building. Even the affordable housing, we may live in it if we can, but we're not part of the deal. And so we're going to shut you down. It's hot enough. We're mad enough. We're going to shut it down. If we don't see ourselves, we're going out. And then nobody gets to disrespect women who have been duly elected to sit in the United States Congress. How do you do that? Talk about them. Send them back home. Well, you send your wife back home and her family. We live by faith. We trust in God. I know this is not popular. this. Our God has said to us, we must stand for right even when it's difficult. We must stand on the promises that he's never failed to keep with us. God is calling a group of people to just stand. Stand on the right side of history. Oh, I know it's difficult now because sometimes you're afraid of standing. We must stand for our children so that they have a future. We must stand for these mothers who are struggling to feed their children. We must stand for the immigrants because they can't stand for themselves. We must stand for those who are looking for a job. We must open up these construction sites. Those are jobs that we are earned and we have a right to. Oh, 50 years ago, we had the Kerner Commission report. I don't want any more paper. I want my fair share of jobs and contracts. I want to open up these schools, and I want every school to teach our children like all the schools on the North Shore and in the rich suburbs. Across the country, we're saying, preachers, we got to stand. We can't allow our Sunday mornings to be our moral moment to talk about how we're going to live morally. I want public morality. I want the government to be more moral. I want the city officials to make sure that we're getting our share of city resources, our share of city jobs. We want our schools to look like the schools where the rich kids go. And so, parents, I'm saying when it's time to go back, we're going to go back and demand that our schools are like everybody else's schools. I'm just saying. We must redeem the soul of America. And the only way you're going to redeem it, we have to march every day on. Whenever you see a site, call us at 773-256-2700 and be prepared to shut it down. If we don't work, nobody works. We got to be prepared to take our children to school, meet our child's teacher. We got to make sure that we are getting what we deserve in our school system. We must stand for right. We must redeem the soul of America. We must fight for our rights. We must stand. You must join us as we move forward. Join Reverend Jackson as we continue to fight for justice, fight for peace, fight for equality. We must eliminate these jails and turn them into learning centers. We must rebuild our neighborhoods ourselves. It's what we can do. It's what we must do. God has called us for this moment in time. Won't you stand with me?